Published between 1871 and 1872, Middlemarch was written by famed English novelist George Eliot, the pen name of Mary Ann Evans. In addition to essays and criticism, she wrote short fiction, poetry, and 7 novels, but Middlemarch is considered her masterpiece. The novel begins with a wise, empathetic, clear-sighted, third-person omniscient narrator who introduces the action of the story and its meaning, and the characters who propel it. Dorothea Brooke, the primary protagonist, is an ardent and religious young woman who aspires to lead an epic life. Intelligent and beautiful, she's come to live, along with her sister Celia, at her uncle's estate in the English town of Middlemarch after her parents die. Short-sightedness is a symbol that shows up early. Dorothea is short-sighted, both literally and figuratively, and doesn't see well beyond her own vision of what the world ought to be like, or beyond her ideals, which makes her miss obvious and important information about other people and situations. Other people in the novel suffer from metaphorical short-sightedness or blindness. Casaubon, Bulstrode, while other characters such as Celia and Mrs. Cadwallader, the town gossip, see clearly with less illusion and projection. Dorothea is being courted by a handsome baronet, Sir James, but she chooses instead a middle-aged clergyman, Edward Casuabon, because she thinks he has a great mind and will broaden her intellectual and spiritual horizons. She wants to become wise so that she can know what to do in life, what will provide the greatest good. After she's married, she learns that Casaubon has been compiling notes for 30 years for a treatise he called The Key to All Mythologies. His thesis is based on outdated ideas and will never see the light of day. She also becomes friends with Casaubon's younger cousin, Will Ladislaw, a student who's not yet found his career. At her new home, she discovers an important symbol, a portrait of Julia Casaubon. It's immediately connected in Dorothea's mind to Will Ladislaw, since he looks like her. Julia was Will's grandmother, who, along with her children, was disinherited from the family for marrying a poor, non-English man, Mr. Ladislaw. Initially, Julia represents for her the difficulties of marriage. Dorothea identifies with Julia as someone who married against the wishes of her relatives and who paid a price for it. Much later, the portrait comes to represent the absent Will, with whom Dorothea has fallen in love. Here, Ladislaw soon falls in love with Dorothea, and he's content to worship her from afar. Casaubon becomes extremely jealous. Dorothea is not aware of Ladislaw's feelings or the intensity of her husband's dislike for his cousin. Her life with Casaubon becomes more and more stifling. After an emotional scene with Dorothea, Casaubon has a heart attack. Not long after, he dies, having left a codicil to his will saying that if Dorothea ever marries Ladislaw, she will lose Casaubon's wealth and estate. Worth noting here is the symbol of the pier glass. The pier glass, or large mirror, mentioned in chapter 27 is an important symbol in the way in which an ego organizes unconnected events and random experiences into a coherent story or likely narrative. A glass or other polished surface may reveal hundreds of random scratches, but when a light is put at the center of it, the scratches appear to be in a pattern of concentric circles. Similarly, people sometimes believe that events have arranged themselves for their convenience, or they find patterns in their lives to make meaning of what happens to them. Meanwhile, Tertius Lydgate, a gifted doctor, comes to Middlemarch, hoping to participate in medical reform and make an important scientific discovery. Lydgate is overconfident that he will not get sidetracked on his way to greatness. The beautiful and charming narcissist, Rosamund Vincy, marries him to move up the social ladder. The doctor gets heavily into debt as a result of overspending to set up house and keep his wife in style. Lydgate also makes enemies of the other medical men in town who dislike him as much for his arrogance as for his new ideas, and he ends up losing patience as a result. As Lydgate's financial situation worsens, he discovers that his wife doesn't really love him and will never be more to him than an expensive and demanding ornament. Rosamund's brother Fred gets into financial troubles by gambling. He expects to inherit his uncle Featherstone's money and land, but when the miser dies and leaves his property to his illegitimate son, Fred is forced to finish university and face the necessity of becoming a clergyman. The woman that he loves, Mary Garth, will not marry him if he takes up a vocation he is clearly not suited for. Really, she's waiting for him to become a responsible adult. Mary's father agrees to take Fred on as an apprentice to learn the business of land management. Lydgate has set up a fever hospital with help from Mr. Bulstrode, an evangelical Christian, philanthropist, banker, and the paternal uncle of Lydgate's wife. Bulstrode wields a lot of power and is resented by many for his harsh judgments about people's moral character. Ironically, Bulstrode is harboring a great secret. He made his first fortune by snatching the inheritance of the heirs of his first wife, who is now dead. Bulstrode's past catches up with him when John Raffles, an alcoholic and swindler, comes to town to torment him and to extort money for keeping quiet about his past. Raffles gets sick because of his drinking and is taken to Stone Court, a property Bulstrode recently bought. Bulstrode calls Lydgate in to care for him. Raffles is suffering from alcohol poisoning, and when Bulstrode doesn't follow Lydgate's treatment orders, he passively kills the patient. The town soon finds out about Bulstrode's disreputable past, and Lydgate is connected to his disgrace because he took a loan from Bulstrode to avoid bankruptcy. People think Lydgate took some kind of bribe, although no one can say what it was. Lydgate eventually has to leave town with Rosamund and come to terms with the fact that he will never fulfill his potential. Dorothea and Will Ladislaw try to stay away from each other because of Casaubon's codicil, but they cannot help but fall in love with each other. Against family objections, Dorothea and Will end up engaged on the strength of their personal fortune. Fred Vincy and Mary Garth are also married. Here, at the end of the novel, it's worth reflecting on another key symbol of the book, the web. The author uses the motif of a web in several places in the novel to underline that people never act in a vacuum, that they are connected to other people, and that what they do affects other beings who make up the same web and vice versa. Connected with the symmetry of the web metaphor is the symmetry the author creates in comparing and contrasting various characters' paths in life as they marry and choose vocations or professions. For example, Dorothea's selflessness and desire to aid her husband in writing his magnum opus are juxtaposed with Rosamund's dislike of her husband's profession of medicine and her unwillingness to help him when they get into financial trouble. At the same time, her aunt Bulstrode's handling of her husband's moral downfall, in which she sticks by her guilty spouse, is contrasted with Rosamund's refusal to stand by Lydgate, even though he's innocent of wrongdoing. Mr. Bulstrode passively kills his blackmailer, and Lydgate is falsely implicated because he's taken financial help from Bulstrode. Similarly, Dorothea's desire to be of service is contrasted with Rosamund's selfishness. Both Lydgate and Casaubon are searching for a key to unlock a universal mystery, with Lydgate hoping to find the basis of biological life and Casaubon looking for the foundation of all religious ideas. Mary Garth's ability to shape Fred Vincy's destiny is juxtaposed with Dorothea's inability to affect Casaubon and Lydgate's inability to change Rosamund. The happy marriages of Dorothea and Will Ladislaw and of Fred and Mary are juxtaposed with the unhappy marriages of Dorothea and Casaubon and Lydgate and Rosamund. The compatible couples in the novel are represented by Fred Vincy and Mary Garth and Susan and Caleb Garth. No one in the novel is entirely successful in fulfilling a vocation. There are degrees of success and failure tangled in the web. Many themes exist in the novel, but they all come from the primary themes, what it means to be a hero and the quest to rise above the ordinary. Consider the theme, the definition of a hero. In George Eliot's novels, characters who yearn for greatness, to do something that will leave a mark so that the world will remember them, are frustrated by their own personal failures, fate, or society. Because women had so few arenas in which to act, the author keenly feels the restrictions placed because of gender. The novel Middlemarch begins with the story of a 16th century saint, Teresa, who lived an epic life, but latter-day Teresas can only find limited opportunities. Middlemarch can be read as a study of failed heroism. Dorothea begins her grown-up life with a dream of attaining spiritual transcendence, but ends up settling for mediocre goodness. The problem of vocation is a theme that underscores the difficulty people face in finding satisfying work that also brings in sufficient income. People are limited in what their vocations can be by sex and class. Women can do little besides be wives and mothers, and people's social status limits their opportunities. Then there's the theme of the quest for, and limits of, knowledge. People with intellectual natures often search for knowledge, which they feel will improve their lives or help them to better understand life's meaning. Sometimes the quest for knowledge is a search for immortality, in which people expect to make their marks on the world through invention or discovery. Both Edward Casuabon and Tertius Lydgate hope to find a key that will unlock a universal principle that knits the universe together. Casaubon expects to find the key to all mythologies, while Lydgate seeks the basis for all tissue structure. Dorothea hopes to assist Casaubon in his inquiries, which she initially assumes will make an important contribution to scholarship, but she also wants knowledge for herself. Another theme? The limits of free will and moral agency. How much can a human being affect the course of their life? How much do the winds and currents of environment affect a person's final destination? How much do other people influence what a person is able to do in life? How much free will exists when people are at the mercy of their own backgrounds, which may work against their goals and plans? These are important questions in an exploration of the limits of free will asked by the novel. Each character is a moral agent with the capacity for doing right and wrong and should be held accountable for his or her actions. The novel is full of moral dilemmas in which people must discern the greatest good among choices that are less than ideal. Marriage incompatibility is a final major theme. All too often, people choose the wrong marriage partners either because they don't seriously consider whether they're compatible in their goals and outlooks, or they're not complementary in their needs and desires. Dorothea marries Mr. Casaubon because she believes he has a great mind, and she has the desire to do something great in the world. And as a woman, the likeliest path for her is to help with a great man. Lydgate wants an ornamental wife and doesn't consider how such a woman might thwart his career ambitions, and Rosamund wants an attractive outsider with aristocratic connections. Mary and Fred work toward a long-lasting compatibility because Fred is willing to change and Mary's willing to wait for him.